With the chassis now all finished up and ready to be put onto the body, all that needed to be done is do the final assembly on the body and eventually put the chassis on. Now I'm gluing in some clear parts behind the headrests. These are mainly clear, and later on I'm going to paint some of it black as it shows through a little bit too much. Now also another part of the interior that needed to be glued on was to the windshield frame on the inside. While I still had some black paint on the brush, I figured I'd paint the window rubbers as well. With the paint dried up, I could glue in the interior just using some Zap CA glue. Before I put the windshield in, I'm going to glue the rear view mirror in and also some other clear parts into the headlight buckets, which will be glued on later. For the exhaust cover on the rear, there was also a small titanium bit, so I painted that with a brush. Some vents in the front bumper needed to be glued on, and a small latch in the rear also needed to be put in before I could move on to putting the body on the chassis. With all these parts put together, the body finished and the chassis also done, these could be married together. It was a bit of a fiddly job trying to figure out how to mount it, as the rear and front bumper were already glued on before painting, so a small bit of bending, pulling and pushing put it in to the place where it needed to be. It still was a bit off, so a bit of jiggling about and putting some pressure just snapped it right into place. With that all done, I could finish up some other parts that needed to be applied to the engine and also the rest of the body. Pretty much all was glued on with super glue or some Revell contact clear for the clear parts specifically. Before gluing the headlight lenses into place, I always like to give it a small touch up with the permanent marker around the edges to simulate the rubber that is on the real ones. The front splitter that I cut off in the beginning because I glued on the front and rear bumpers prior to painting is now ready to be glued on. With most of the handling for the body and chassis pretty much finished, I could put on the Porsche logos to the brake calipers. I do this last because if I do this earlier on, I run the risk of removing one with my fingers by accident, and it would look terrible with one of the emblems missing. With everything pretty much all together, I could just pop on these Plamos wheels to finish it off, apply the side mirrors, and register it with a nice license plate.